Hi, this is Shannon Tidwell, Garden Girl at Two Peas in a Bucket, and I'm back with another 213 in 2013. This is a weekly video series from three other garden girls and myself, and each week we'll have about 4 to 5 different prompts to get you started on your next layout. So by the end of 2013, you'll have a list of 213 creative prompts to inspire you. This week I took a little different approach. Instead of doing a girl layout with pinks or a boy layout in a sports theme, I decided to do a grown-up theme layout. So it was a lot of fun to pull from a different color scheme than I'm used to. So when I got started on this layout, I began with 2 photos that are some Instagram photos and then a gray striped, diagonal striped background. I really love starting with a neutral stripe like this for my background. So it's a blank slate, but I've also kind of got a starting point. And then I've got some new products that I've kind of gathered up. I'm not sure what I'm going to use, but I just kind of like the color. They had that turquoise and gray in it. So I just kind of gathered them up and see where it's going to take me. This number paper, it's by Fancy Pants from the Trendsetter line, which I don't think is quite out yet, but should be arriving in the stores pretty soon. This paper really caught my eye. I love these numbers. I'm not sure that I would ever use it as a whole piece, as a background or anything, but it was just calling to me to start cutting these numbers out. And so that's where I decided to start. I'm going to cut out the 2013 out of different patterns from this pattern paper. Now you could certainly get this same look without this pattern paper by just using a template or maybe your silhouette or doing a reverse print on a pattern paper from your computer on different pattern papers to get this 2013. But I think it's a lot of fun to go back and use your scissors and do a little bit of cutting. So that's one of my prompts, is to cut a design from pattern paper. So once I've got my 2013 cut out, it definitely needs some type of separation from my diagonal striped background. So I have this fun pattern paper by Glitz Design from the Uncharted Waters collection. And so I'm going to cut this 4x6 card out and use it as a background for my 2013 title. And I'm definitely thinking that the 2013 needs some pot dots, of course, to add a little separation between those layers and just make them jump off the page. So once I got my photos and the title kind of laid out on the page, I definitely thought that the background needed a little something extra. I need to add some sparkle. So I grabbed this glitter cardstock and I'm going to add some strips of it to the background. First I cut them at a 1/4 inch strip and I felt like it was just a little too wide. I wanted the strips to fit within those gray stripes. So I trimmed it down just a tad, pretty much just eyeballed it a little bit less than a 1/4 inch. And that is going to be your next prompt, to go metallic on your layout. I went ahead and cut several of the strips of the metallic paper, and I'm just going to go ahead and adhere them on to the background. I'm really not going to do them in a pattern, just kind of random, following along with the diagonal striped background that's already there, just to add a little something extra to the background. I don't want it to stand out too much. That's why I'm just following along with the design and not going against it. But I think it'll add a nice little shimmer to the background with still letting my photos and the rest of the embellishments take center stage on the page. And that looks like it'll be enough, so I'm just going to lift the paper up and trim off the excess around the edge. Okay, so here's how my primary embellishment got started. I had this little piece of vellum left over from my last layout, just kind of sitting on my desk. And I visualized doing some kind of flag banners coming out from the sides of each of the photos. So that's what I'm doing here, just doing a light sketch so I kind of get the size right. And I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 of them, so there's one on the left and one on the right side of each of the photos. I added a little gold metallic machine stitching to each of those banners. And then here's where my next idea kind of came into play. I thought it would be fun to add another pattern back behind. And so I kind of thought about all those bows, paper bows I've been seeing on Pinterest and all over the place, Instagram, everywhere. So that's where I went with this. I just cut a strip, kind of finger measured it a little bit bigger than the banners I already had there. And I just cut one 12-inch strip and then cut that in half into 6 inches and folded it. And then you can see how it's going to fit right behind that vellum flag. So before I tear them down, I'm going to add some stitching to it with that gold thread. And here you can see I've done that. I stitched the sides and then I'm going to stitch the end together. And I want to leave it open on the middle there so it kind of loops around. I'm going to go ahead and stick a couple pop dots in there so if it does get kind of squished in my scrapbook, then it'll still have a little dimension that'll hold that loop open. And that's my next prompt to tie it with a bow. And once I put those under the outside edge of the photos, I discovered that that kind of made the middle of the photo sink. So I'm going to go ahead and add some pop dots to the center of those photos so they lift off the page a little bit and don't look like they're sunken down in the middle. I felt like the 2013 title needed a little something extra. I would have loved to have machine stitched an edge around it with a gold thread, but I knew I'd never be able to do that without goofing it all up. So I decided just to ink the edge of it with a gold metallic Sharpie. I felt like that just kind of gave it a finished off look. Okay, I'm going to get a little crafty right here. I wanted to add some feathers to this page, but the only color feather I had was these from Bella Boulevard in a bright pink, and that really didn't go with my layout. So I decided that I could mist them into a color that I wanted. So I started out with kind of a dark charcoal gray, and you can see that I just put it in a Ziploc bag because I had that handy, and that way I didn't have to worry about the spray getting anywhere else. So I just gave it a good spritz, kind of smushed it around in there to get the color good and saturated on the whole feather. And then once I was happy with the coloring on it, I went ahead and pulled it out and just laid it on a piece of cardboard that I had and kind of spread it out a little bit, and then I'm going to let it dry. And you can see here we are the next morning. It's all good and dry, and you can see that I also decided to spray another one before I went to bed that night. And I did it kind of in a teal color, and it really turned out nice. I thought it would be good to have two kind of in contrasting colors to be on the layout. So this is a good way to get a little extra bang for your buck. Bella has every color you can think of in those feathers, but of course we can't have them all. So you could just choose a few of them and rest easy to know that you could change the color if you needed to. I felt like the feathers needed a little extra sparkle, so I had some gold paint, and I'm just going to paint on some little drips of it on each of the feathers. As I was digging through my stash looking for those metallic paints, I found this Zing embossing powder by American Crafts, and this color really grabbed me because I thought it would be perfect for this layout. So I thought that it would look really good maybe around the edge of my little die cut back there behind the title. So we'll see how that goes. And that brings us to our fourth prompt, to heat it up with embossing powder. If you don't have any, I noticed that there is a ton of new embossing powder by American Crafts in the store in all kinds of fun, bright neon colors. So here I am just tapping the eggs with some Versamark ink, and I'm just going to do one edge at a time just so I can kind of keep control over it and make sure that I'm liking how it's turning out. What I really love about embossing powder is that it is set. When you heat it up and melt it, it is there. So you kind of have a painted edge without having to wait for it to dry. And here we go. I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't really adhered anything down, but now I'm really liking how this is turning out. So it's time to make that commitment and start getting this stuck down to the page. I went ahead and added pop dots to the back of my little title block there because I wanted it to be at the same level as my photos because I kind of need to do a little strategic placement there and cover up a little bit of my booty. Okay, here I'm thinking that the background needs just a little something extra, and I'm thinking confetti, but I wanted it to be metallic and I really didn't want to mess with sequins or anything like that. So I decided just to get my circle punch and punch some circles from that metallic glitter paper that I used earlier. I want it to look like it's bursting from the title a little bit, and I just kind of placed them around randomly, and I decided I need some little ones too, so I just got a regular hole punch. I'm punching from the same glitter cardstock as before. I'm going to go ahead and stick these down as I go, just using a little bit of liquid glue. It's just the easiest way to get some glue on those. So I'm going to get busy with that. Okay, I finished gluing down all my little dots. I've also gone ahead and adhered the 2013, and now I just felt like I'm going to add a little bit of dimension to my confetti burst down there at the bottom, just adding a few of these gems from Studio Calico. Just kind of randomly placing them around the page. I'm using a couple from each of the designs and sizes. And here I'm giving it a good look, trying to figure out what is missing. And I decided a little fringe, of course. I'm using my Martha Stewart fringe scissors that I love to cut a bit of fringe from this same glitter cardstock paper, just kind of cutting in about halfway and then cutting that strip. Just make sure that you cut far enough up so you're not cutting where you've already cut your fringe, because then it'll just fall apart. So I cut just the length of it, just kind of eyeballing it, and decided that I cut it in half and put one of these fringe layers on each side of my paper bow. Just add a little extra sparkle up there around the photos. All right, so now it's time to think about the journaling, and I have grabbed this little tag from Ormolu, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing incorrectly, but anyway, I like this gray chevron. I'm thinking that I will just tuck it in like that so the chevron shows when you pull it out, but I think that I'll do the journaling on the back side of the tag. For my journaling, I decided to do it a little differently this time. Instead of handwriting, I'm using a mixture of letter stickers that I gathered up in gold and silver, different metallic, different sizes and shapes. And I'm just doing kind of a list form journaling of words that make me think of this night. And for all my grammar gurus out there, I realized that I spelled champagne incorrectly, but I didn't notice it until I had already videotaped this and taken photos of the layout. So for me, it wasn't worth going back and redoing all that, but I have switched those letter stickers, just so you know. So once I finished putting all those letter stickers on there, I felt like it was way too cute to hide hidden back behind my photos. I decided just to stick it in there beside the title. And I know I'm losing that chevron stripe on the background, but it's a price to pay for some cute journaling. And here is the final layout. You'll notice that I did a little bit of tweaking after I finished the video. Once I held up the layout and kind of looked at it, I felt like I needed to switch those feathers to the right-hand side since I had that journaling tag on the left-hand side to kind of help balance out the layout. And then I added some machine stitching both to across the top of the tag and then around the edge of the layout, which was almost the death of me because the gold thread is pretty weak and it broke several times. Don't you hate that whenever you decide to add that finishing touch and it ends up taking you half as long as the rest of the layout? It's kind of where it went. But it turned out looking good once I got it fixed around the edge. And the last little finishing touch that I decided to add at the last minute were those letter stickers down there where instead of "this makes me happy," I changed it to "music makes me happy" because it just reminded me of the Bruno Mars song that is my theme song lately. So I think that wraps up my layout this week for 2013 and 2013. You've got 4 prompts to inspire you this week. First is to cut a design from pattern paper. Second, to go metallic. Third, to tie it with a bow. And fourth, to heat it up with embossing powder. So I hope you'll join in on the challenges this month for a chance to win a prize from 2Ps. This is Shannon Tidwell, Garden Girl at 2 Peas in a Bucket. Thanks a lot. Bye.